don't have a pen.
All right, so I'm going to talk about a novel electric and laser lithoplasty technology, specifically the FastWave system. Well, they have two systems, the Arterial Peripheral IVL system and then an electric laser-based system. Disclosures, Medical Advisory Board, and I'm a managing partner at Epic Venture Partners. We led the last round of funding for FastWave. So FastWave was started in 2021, Delaware C Corp, based in Minneapolis. It actually has two platforms, so we'll talk about both. There's the electric platform, which is, I would say, a nice iteration and improvement on what we have available today, which is Shockwave, and then sort of the next generation laser coronary for now, but can be easily adapted to peripheral system, which is really sort of the leapfrog technology. So far, $40 million raised in capital and 7 granted patents. So let's play quickly. So this is the manufacturing facility in Minneapolis. We know that coronary artery disease is the #1 killer globally in the US, year of COVID, men, women, et cetera, et cetera. PAD causes amputations way too often. And with the exploding epidemic of diabetes, chronic kidney disease, and aging population, we're dealing with calcium more often than not. And so IVL has really, taken the market by storm. And now FastWave is looking to develop, again, the second generation technology. I think one of the big things with Shockwave is that, it works, but it's hard to get the balloon to the lesion, especially in the coronary space or challenging peripheral anatomy. And so, again, I'll show you why this technology is better. Let that interest of time. So if you look at, this is a time period on the left of 2020 to 2022. Atherectomy at its peak usage in the coronary space was approaching 6%. It's now closer to 1.5% to 2%. In that time and now, you see that IVL has taken off and is approaching 10% usage in PCI. And you can see on the right side, the initial 3 years really when IVL was approved for peripheral. And then once it got approved for coronary, you can see that's where the inflection point was. And it's growing very, very rapidly. So we'll talk about the electrical system that is right now being developed aimed at the peripheral space first. It's got a very nice plug-and-play catheter, so you don't have the extra dongle that has to be draped and sometimes gets thrown out with the system. You can see a much nicer user interface or a numerator-denominator system with the balloon size on the bottom as opposed to the legacy Shockwave system. It's plugs in, doesn't need to be recharged or anything like that, and one-click hands-free delivery. So once you push it, you don't have to hold it down. A little bit of what makes this different. If you look at the emitters, they're ring-shaped, almost like marker bands, and the electricity goes from the positive to the negative randomly, but you'll see it goes anywhere along that 360-degree ring. And every time there's a spark gap created, there's oxidation, there's degradation with Shockwave, but here it randomly goes to the next point. So over the course of a series of shocks, you have 360-degree distribution and affecting 360 degrees of the artery, which I think is really, really beneficial, as opposed to Shockwave, which only has emitters diametrically opposed at 180 degrees. So that's where you get the most sonic impulses. Also, better balloons in general, just a more trackable, lower crossing profile, hydrophilic coated, et cetera, et cetera. Here you can see the balloon. Each emitter fires independently. You're not seeing the flash because of the frame rate of the camera, but you can hear how fast it is. So again, Shockwave has 1 to 2 hertz, so 1 click to 2 clicks per second. This is 4 hertz, and the laser will be 5 hertz. So much more efficient use of your time. And also less degradation because of the ring design. We're targeting 450 shocks per balloon, which is much more than what Shockwave has. So now I'm going to jump to the laser system. Okay, and again, the laser system is very, very novel. You can see here that it's going to be 5 hertz, and it's going to be 1 laser fiber. And as you can see in the animation, we have a wheel where you can move the fiber along the balloon. Okay, so initially developed for coronary in a 24 millimeter balloon, but easily adaptable to the peripheral space. So you could theoretically have a 250 millimeter balloon and have a laser fiber that you have control over. And you can actually focus on the areas that maybe not be expanding or that you see extra calcium. This is going to be a very highly performant balloon because you're dealing with 1 laser fiber and not the fixed emitters that you have to have with an electric-based system. So the balloon is much more performant. and deliverable. And each impulse with the laser is automatically a 360-degree sound wave, shock wave, to the entire wall. Unlike the electrical system, even on FastWave, where it's more concentrated on one side, but over the course of several shocks, it'll go in a ring distribution. Every single one is 360 degrees. Here's a sonic pulse here generated by the laser, and you can see why it's 360 degrees, because every time it fires, it's a circumferential bubble to all the sides. Here's the footprint. So the electrical system would basically be the top box alone. The laser system is not much more. It's just the optics are on the top, and then the power source is on the bottom. So again, portable, easy plug and play. Here's some micro CT data from cadaver studies. So this is a posterior tibial artery. You can see the circumferential rings of calcium in the pre-treatment area. After we treated with the laser system, you can see the fractures that we see circumferentially. And then just as a blow up here, you can see the micro CT enlarged where there's multiple fractures along both longitudinally and circumferentially to help expand that artery safer. Let's see here. Okay, so last February, they performed the first in human for the electrical platform. So going back to the electrical system in the periphery, they did a first in human study in Chiapas, Mexico. Dr. Ramaiah was one of the operators that was able to go. Typical criteria, Rutherford class 2 to 4, abnormal ABIs, claudication, fem-pop lesions greater than 70%, and results showed a lot of safety and efficacy. So 9 limbs treated, all were crossed, including 3 CTOs. On the 3 CTOs, 2 of them did not require predilatation. The one that did was really just out of habit. They didn't try to cross. You can see no balloon ruptures, no adverse events, no safety events, and good outcomes. So currently, timelines for these programs. So for the electric system, final testing is being performed actually this week, and we expect to have ID approval here in second quarter of 25. So just in a few short months. And then we also, in the same trial, plan to enroll below knee disease to start a little bit later, and then be ready to submit 510K clearance first half of 26. On the laser side, we are planning to do first in human OUS here in also second quarter of 25, and then roll that into a pivotal trial sort of the end of this year. So here's just showing you the electrical system. Those are rings of calcium, and you can see each emitter firing independently, and as it does, it cracks that calcium. All right. Well, thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you. So it is expected that both of them go through the 510K pathway then?
No, the electric aimed at the peripheral space will be 510K. The other one will need a pivotal, class 3. Yeah, for the coronary.
What happens to that calcium?
It's sort of like, you think about like a windshield, tempered glass, you crack it, it stays within the wall. It's very low risk of, it's unlike atherectomy, it's low risk of embolization, but it gets cracked and it just gets more pliable to expand.
Arthur, couple of questions regarding laser instead of electrical energy. Why do we choose that?
So there's a lot of benefits for laser. So one is, remember, shockwave currently shoots 180 degrees. So your biggest effect is going to be random, but 180 degrees apart. The parts that are in the other quadrants are not as high energy. Laser, automatically it goes 360 degrees because of the shape of the bubble, okay? Fiber.
So it's the cavitation bubble
Yep.
that you create with laser versus the
Correct.
acoustic, this thing that comes out of the electrical.
Yeah, both are creating true cavitation bubbles. It's just the shape of the bubble, and because the emitter is, sticking out to one side on shockwave, it's only going to affect that wall. And the emitters are like this. So the other walls that don't have an emitter, they're not going to be as affected. So if you look at sort of the graph of pressure, it's always out 180 degrees and less on the other sides, the 270 and 90 quadrants.
And what do you use for laser? Which wave or what? Are you?
It's holmium-based laser. The exact frequency is probably proprietary, so we probably can't say. But yeah. And then also there's no degradation. So with the spark gap, with shockwave, the pulses, first of all, are very erratic. So even though they say they have a mean of 50, the first one could be 80, next one 20. It's all over the place, depending on that spark. And also, the first shock is always usually the strongest. You have degradation. That's why you have limit of 180 shocks or whatever, depending on the balloon. Whereas laser, theoretically, there's no degradation. You could fire 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 times, which we have. The company, I'm sure, will put a cap on it arbitrarily, but there's really no degradation of energy. And it's more possible.
Yeah, for the patent, you're only protected for the laser, this thing, because the other one is already being patented. So your 40 patents are on what ground?
So the laser patents are around the fiber that moves inside the balloon, the translatable fiber. But the electric also is patented. And we've had, 3 well-known legal firms do analysis, and we've had freedom to operate. If you think about it, it's very, very different because
freedom to operate does not mean that they can't come and sue you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But again, being an investor in multiple companies like Venclose,
Venclose went through the
Freedom
same thing.
Flow, yeah. I mean, those were much more similar, and they still won and defended their patents and freedom to operate. This one, I think, is very differentiated because, again, the spark plug is on the ring, and you automatically have a spark here, oxidizes, it goes to the next point of least resistance, so you have it moving around. I think is very, very different from the way Shockwave generates their pulses. Plus, CSI had challenged the Shockwave patents in 2020. What was it called, IPR? And they invalidated all but 3 patents. So that's when sort of Bolt and everybody else sort of came out and started developing their systems. Yeah.
Lee, I only have one comment. I think you should change the last portion of the video. It's pretty scary.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, please.
Now, if I understand, did you make the laser only for the coronary and the electric for the peripheral?
So right now, because the electric was the first to be developed and is ahead by 6 to 9 months, right? The laser was started off as an idea, and then they said if we're going to develop it, we might as well develop for the biggest market right now. So right now, currently, if you look at Shockwave's market, 80% of the revenue comes from the coronary space. So right now, it's being developed as coronary, and we think that the deliverability and the performance there is going to shine compared to Shockwave, because that's where a lot of times we can't get the device, but easily adaptable to peripheral. So we may, Scott Nelson, who's in the room, the company may actually do some prototypes of long balloons, but it all depends on capital. As a startup, you have to decide where you spend your capital and time. More than likely, we would probably wait till the sort of strategic comes on board and then develop it. But it wouldn't take much at all. Yeah, and the nice advantage of that is 250 millimeter balloon or 200 millimeter balloon, and you can move the fiber around and still the same crossing profile.
Yeah, I think the lesson from the IVL is actually the ease of use. If you look at all orbital atherectomy devices, the uptake from the physician, the adoption was less than 5%, literally like 3%. And when the IVL came in the coronary, you see the adoption skyrocketed. And actually, the 2 companies, CSI was sold with $890 million, and the IVL Shockwave was sold for $13 billion. So when you think of innovation, think of ease of use in the end of the day, from the beginning, before when you are thinking of ideas, which idea to choose. Choose an idea that for sure make it easy for a physician to adapt. I think that's enough for this.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll move to the next speaker.